I could just keep going with that.
Well, it's kind of related to the bias that you were saying. Was that a retort I got the other day when I was talking to someone was that because I said, it's brilliant because someone like you will be there, so you can trust them. And she said, I don't trust myself. So, I mean, there will be people who genuinely think that they don't trust people like themselves, and so therefore they won't. And it's a similar bias, is that only the people who do trust themselves will volunteer in the first place. You see what I mean? So, how do you get over that?
I think you can only really do that by talking to people about citizens' assemblies and telling people that they can make decisions. Everybody can make decisions. We make decisions all the time. And when you sit down, and again, going back to the film, the one from Patrick Chalmers, there's just this charming old man who's just sitting there, and I think in some Irish village, and he's just sitting there and he's just talking about stuff. And it's just like, he's not like a professor or anything, he's just, these sort of films show that it's just normal people who are there. You're not there to, work out the exact details of how much CO2 a plane emits or anything. You're there to make the decisions from the experts who do just tell you in plain language about things. We can just ask anybody, should people be driving or cycling, and these are the reasons why they'll do each or the other. And it's just to make simple choices like those. So I think it needs to be a thing of education. So maybe, because we're in the pack that goes out, there's a letter that explains why. Slightly thicker for the Welsh ones, of course, because you have to do it in both languages. So I keep getting these things that turn up in both. I can't speak Welsh. But so this information will be there, and you can put into that and explain as much as you can.
There's a question over here.
Do you know if any of the current political parties have indicated any particular interests, supports,
Well,
etc.?
interestingly, who just got kicked out, Rory Stewart, said he wanted to have a Citizens Assembly on Brexit. The previous Citizens Assembly on Brexit had no mandate issue. So,
What did it decide?
I think to go for a very, very soft option was the key thing. They basically, it was after the Brexit vote, and they chose people according to, they got an exact match of how many people, etc. But worth looking up. So if you just look up Citizens Assembly on Brexit.
Also, they didn't have a final decision. They said, if this, we do that. That's a preference. But if that, then we'll do that. So it wasn't like a black and white, cut and dry, polarised. It was everybody agreed, but there was a level of decision.
But again, there, because it had no mandate, literally no one had heard about it. So
it was just advice.
It was. I think it was more of an exercise to see what was going to happen.
There's a question here.
Yeah, thanks for your talk. There's quite a few terms being bandied around.
Oh, sorry.
Citizens' assemblies, people's assemblies, I've heard citizens' juries. Is there any difference between these in any formal way?
Massive, yes. So this was the whole thing with. So the People's Assembly is just a self-selected group who just effectively sit down together, and then they deliberate, kind of self-facilitated. Someone with who takes notes. And it's a good way of getting a large group of people. So if you've got like 1,000 people, I think it kind of came out of the Occupy movement, I think. A large group of people to make decisions and come up with ideas. And there's a kind of self-facilitate, so people make sure everyone's heard. Citizens' juries, I think, are just a smaller form of citizens' assemblies. I don't know the exact difference. Someone else just went into a talk about it recently. But certainly in Scotland they call citizens' assemblies quite a lot of the time, they call them citizens' juries. We've got a document that we've just produced which has got, I think, like 12 points for a citizens' assembly to make sure that everybody is. Because I was talking to someone in Wales and they were like, oh yeah, we're going to have a citizens' assembly, we're just not going to randomly select people. And you're like, well, what's that then? Sorry.
I think that's similar to what Cambridge City Council have just proposed for, inviting people to apply.
Oh, what's this one? Is it a different one, or?
I don't know, you'd know.
No, I think, so the GCP one, it looked like what they were going to do was invite people to apply on the website if they wanted to be a part of it. Now, I don't know if that's changed.
But it's not being bear in mind it's not being run by them. So
Yeah.
some
So that-
involved in that
maybe
lot and
that's
involved do
something,
Citizens
yeah.
Assembly all the time.
So that must be something else. But no, that wasn't the city council. It's something to do with GCP as well. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Question? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. One, do you know of examples when there's been a big divergence of opinion between the existing politicians and the existing populace and what the Citizens Assembly came up with, where the results were actually implemented? And part of the reason why I'm asking that is because when people go through a process, a closed process like this, and are subjected to all the information and they really change their mind, then people who weren't part of that process regard them as being captive to of the process and being indoctrinated. So it's hard to get buy-in from people that weren't part of the process.
I suppose it's again, it's back to the mandate question, where you need to, at the beginning, have a mandate to say, so the ones in Australia, they'll only do them, so this group called the New Democracy Foundation, they'll only run a Citizens Assembly if they know that someone's actually going to listen to it. Because otherwise you essentially got this thing where you're just sitting there talking into the wind. But the process is open, so they'll see all the evidence going in. What they probably wouldn't see is people actually sitting there talking, because you don't really want a camera in your face. But then people give interviews afterwards. And so the ones we did in Scotland, I say we as a general, everyone, not us, there's little snapshots of people just saying how they felt the thing went. And so getting that kind of information out, so getting information out about how Citizens Assemblies work, and that is spreading more about how this model works. And so people can see the information that went out, why people made their choices, and also I believe quite a lot of them, they write a report together as a group exercise, and so they can say, well, these are the choices we made, which I think is very important, because if one of your key pieces of information, evidence, is wrong, you need to go back and revisit that. So I think if the process is transparent enough, I think you can avoid that kind of issue. But I mean, certainly in, say, Ireland, where the politicians were completely at odds with, but they only kind of grudgingly kind of accepted that they needed to do this to get them out of this hole. So it wouldn't have been their first choice, but they found that they used it for their purposes, and it happened to work for everyone else.
I was just going to say, to work, it would have to be completely transparent and accountable. There would have to be transcripts of all of the evidence that was given, all of the debates, all of the deliberations, and that would have to be publicly accessible.
So the another thing that I missed out was that in Ireland they did a submission process where they asked everyone in the country to submit evidence about it, and all that was on the website, and all the information about this, all the subjects was on the website. So everything was available. So yeah.
She talked about the Citizen Assemblies in Scotland and Wales, and just wondering what kind of topics they were on, because they had numbers like 15, 20, did you say?
I can't remember. So the ones there's been a social care one in the UK about how they deal with social care. The ones I can't remember, I've got the invite for the Welsh one, but I can't remember what the exact subject was. I mean, one of the ones we did in Scotland was for the Scottish Power Network, and it was basically about gas pipelines, and it was quite hard to get anyone to sign up for that, because no one cares. No, I can't remember the exact subjects of those.
The rough numbers of the one that happened in Ireland?
In Ireland, it was 99. It was 1.5 years with 99 people, and oddly one judge who kind of almost presided over it. So it was a slightly odd model. So apparently, the person who helped with the Irish one was talked to us when she came to the workshop about her experiences there, and there are lots and lots of flaws with the Irish one. It's put up as a kind of beacon, but there were still lots of things that didn't work correctly with it. So it's still an evolving process.
Did you kind of think that 99 people, did you kind of think 99 people and one judge was the right amount of people to use for something like that topic?
Probably, yes.
Yeah.
That's probably the amount you want. So we're looking at 100 people for our agenda setting exercise, and then 50 people for each. I think we're going to call them thematic panels or something. So like looking at transport, we'd have maybe 50 people there. Yeah, so probably those sort of numbers. There's a kind of manageable number where you can get a representative group, but it's not so unmanageable that there's just too many people to deal with.
Question here. It's just a technical question. I see you're recording this. I've got a couple of people who could come tonight who are very interested to hear this talk. Can it be available somewhere? Is that the plan?
Yes.
Yep, sure.
I mean, I was trying to take notes, but it'd be much better if they just listened to it, because
Cool.
so much information that you've given us.
Cool. And you're welcome to drop me emails as well if there's any questions as well afterwards. So.
Is this going to go up on YouTube? Or
I don't know, I'm just doing it for Alima. She will decide what
Okay.
happens to it then.
Okay.
But quite a lot of the information is on the Sortition website, isn't it? Is it Sortition? I've
Yeah,
read it.
there's an XR. We've got an XR site, which I've.
But there's also stuff about the Brexit. I think it was done in Birmingham. I don't know where I read it, but it's on the internet.
Yes, yeah. There's a brilliant site called participedia.net, and it's got all the examples of different deliberative. They've just redone it so it's shiny.
What's it called again?
Participedia.
Participedia.
Yeah.
Participedia.
.net.
And can you tell us your email address then?
I'm Keith at sortitionfoundation.org.
Keith at
Sortition
Sortition
Foundation.org.
Foundation.
So there's a group called Democracy R&D Network, and they do, it's like a whole load of organisations who do deliberative sortition Citizens Assemblies processes all over the world. And they meet once a year, so I think they're a bit involved in Participedia, and they've got their own site. And there's a lot of information out there. We've got a website. If you email me, I can send you the link to our the XR website that has got a whole load of links that you can go through, and some good videos and stuff. So. Any questions? No?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about trying to deal with a climate and extinction emergency this way. What sort of decisions might a Citizens Assembly be asked to make to do with it?
So everything, really. This is the trouble. This is why it's taking us a while. It's just not like, how do you solve transport in Cambridge? That's tiny compared to, we need to look at every single aspect of the UK. You know, obviously we need to look at flights, trains, buses. We need to look at farming, you know, how people live in cities. And so there's going to be a lot of questions to ask. And perhaps out of it comes more a guideline of like, we need to head to this way, and they can't give every single answer. But say in transport, you know, they may give, you know, essentially, this is how you deal with flights, this is how you deal with cars. And then the exact policy comes out the other end. And I think it's called the scrutiny body, looks after it afterwards and just says, looks at the government and says, are you actually sticking to what we said, what we came out of the Citizens Assembly? Because you're not going to be able to get very technical information out of the Citizens Assembly. Just, you know, more sort of large-scale things of this needs to happen, this needs to happen.
And then it would go to the civil service or whoever, whichever department deals with that side of things, like the Department for Transport would go, okay, you've said cut transport this much, now we've got to implement that.
Yeah.
Okay. Because otherwise it could take years
Exactly.
to get to a decision.
Which is why you need a randomly selected oversight body afterwards who say, hang on a second, you know, we said we needed zero carbon in 4 years' time, and you've not even started, so, you know, you need to get on it. So.
Question here.
Oh, sorry.
The implementation seems to be quite an important thing, and you've talked about the civil service, so I'm just wondering,
what your experience in other countries has been like around implementation. I'm thinking that the civil service in this country has shrunk enormously over recent years, and so I'm concerned about that process of implementation if it's going to rely on the civil service that we've actually got.
So I'm not a practitioner, so I don't know about other countries. But, I mean, for example, if you're just talking about, say, for example, you had to reduce massively the number of flights, you would figure out a system of who actually could take a flight, etc., and then you need some kind of department who would then look after that. So I think that's just kind of bodies that would then need to be put in place to manage that process. And it's, yeah, I mean, it's, I can't really guess at what the exact, how it's going to come out, but I think there is enough impetus for us to create those bodies that will be able to implement it. I don't think it will be an issue if we've got enough will behind it, which I think we have. So.
Can I suggest that we perhaps take a break here for 10 minutes, get a glass of water?